is from Ricky. So this one's for you. I wonder if you can help me answer this question. If a neighbor's tree is hanging over your property, severely overgrown and taking up a lot of space, who's responsible for cutting it down or maintenance?
So this is actually, Ricky, the second time, the third time already that we've had a question like this, very similar. So if you go on our YouTube page, on the Property Law Alliance YouTube page, you'll see the other discussions we've had around this topic as well. But I'm going to answer the question specifically for you, just because we love answering our viewers' questions. So, Ricky, the truth about this situation is neighbor law is a very delicate part of the law. As much as, if we look at, for instance, a non-paying tenant, to go out guns blazing, stern letters from the start, the intention is to break the relationship between the parties. It's like a divorce. If there are no kids involved, you can go in guns blazing. It's not ideal. I'm not a guns blazing kind of attorney, but you can't cause that much harm if the intention of your actions would be to end a relationship. Very different when it comes to neighbors, because that neighbor's tree, as much as it's a problem for you right now, the neighbor will remain your neighbor, and in all likelihood, that tree, that's the thing about a tree, trees have a way of growing again. So it's a bit of a tightrope situation where you need to balance very gently the relationship between you and your neighbor and still getting what you want. Okay, so actually, the Romans were very clear on this one. I think the Romans struggled with this because this part of our law is extremely well established, especially with trees hanging over neighboring walls. This is one of those things we have a lot of case law in this. The Romans wrote for days on this one. So why the Romans are relevant is, remember, our law is based on Roman Dutch law. So what the Romans decided, and Cilna, we just copied and pasted into our law, is that whatever is on your land, so on your earth, let's talk about an earth or a farm or whatever the case might be, on your land is your responsibility. But if we think about a tree, you can't cut a tree straight off, whoops, just on one side. He will lean over and fall on the neighbor's house. That's going to be sub-ideal. So a tree is now what it is. A tree is going to hang over a little, but a tree can't hang over like uncontrollably. And in your situation, it sounds like it's really a little hectic. So first suggestion would be to do a letter to the neighbor politely saying, don't do a letter, go over, like WhatsApp him, call him, don't, wait for him until when he leaves in the morning to work and say like, hey buddy, cut your tree. Find a good opportunity to talk to your neighbor and say, listen, this is a problem. What is the situation? Are you struggling financially? Don't say it like that, be slightly more diplomatic on that one. But ask him like, why aren't we trimming the tree? Do you, are you really like seriously into the branches on my side? Because I'm actually not. Strictly in theory, and Ricky, please don't accept my advice and just apply it like this, but strictly, you are entitled to prune all the branches and all the fruits from your side that's leaning over to your side. You're allowed to trim them, but you have to return it to the neighbor. So fruits, for instance, you'll see one of the previous webinars, we spoke about the fruits of the tree. Can you take it? And the answer is no, only with the ones that fall would now belong to you. As long as it's still on the tree, it's the neighbor's. And if you trim the branches, theoretically and in law, it actually needs to go back to the neighbors. So I remember, Bruno, we had this discussion. If you ask politely and then the neighbor doesn't want to hear what you're having to say, you can, in law, legally, cut the branches.
Put it in his driveway.
And put it in his driveway. So legally, that's the position. Honestly, I'm that person that actually prefers life to be calm around me. So I won't do that. And I don't suggest you do that. There's going to be a potential chaotic situation. have a conversation. The neighbor is supposed to trim it. If you really get no joy with the guy, you can do a letter of demand, contact Bruno's firm or my firm, get in contact with us. We can do a demand to the neighbor to demand that he trims, and then says, if you don't trim, you're going to trim it on his behalf, and you will hold him liable for the reasonable cost of trimming. So I hope that helps. Bruno, did I miss something? We've had this conversation a few times.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So
No,
by
so
now
you
I
spoke
hope I have
about
the answer.
no, so you spoke about responsibility. You spoke about need, the cost implication. So who would actually need to pay for it, and then obviously the archaic way of actually dealing with branches and stuff like that. And yeah, I mean, this for any other viewers, this always ties in to trees overhanging that aren't merely a convenience, but are a threat. For storms and falling over and stuff like that. Similar things apply to trees that might be cracking walls or that sort of thing. Obviously, if it starts going to foundations and stuff like that, it starts getting very serious. But yeah, the neighbor's tree should not be intrusive.
No, and you are allowed to demand that he removes it.
Yeah.
So I think it's a very important conversation. I think especially with neighbors, it could go so. I'm blessed with amazing neighbors. We actually have quite easy conversations, but I mean, not everybody has that situation.
Yeah, no, absolutely.